Next, from Washington, D.C., from the Conservative Political Action Conference, we talked to Dr. Sebastian Gorka about his new book, Defeating Jihad, The Winnable War. This runs about 5 minutes.
Sebastian Gorka, thank you for joining us. A lot of Illinois Channel viewers may have recognized you from being on any number of national cable shows and being interviewed. And you have a book coming out called Defeating Jihad, The Winnable War. What is it about and why did you write it?
Well, the book is about how we defeat groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. It's about the core reality that you cannot win a war unless you know who the enemy is, what they wish to achieve, and what strategy they're going to use to defeat you. What I say is that we are facing a totalitarian enemy. We've faced those before in the 20th century, whether it was the Nazis during World War II or whether it was the Soviets during the Cold War. Now we have a religiously informed totalitarian enemy, and it's the global jihadi movement. We don't have a plan. It's shocking. We haven't had a real plans for the last 15 years. We've had politics get into our analysis, meaning that we're censoring the truth about who our enemy is, and it's time to talk truthfully about the threat to America and to have a plan to defeat the global jihadists.
You know, this is not like fighting Germany, where we could send over the 8th Air Force and just bomb the smithereens out of them. What is the strategy? And we hear, by the way, any number of the Republican candidates talking about how they're really going to bring the war to fight ISIS and defeat them. What would you do if you were asked by any of these presidential candidates, say, what should we do to defeat them?
Right, so the first thing is, as I said, you've got to speak truthfully about what this enemy is. It's not a function, as the president today thinks, of poverty or lack of education. You've heard the deputy spokesperson for the State Department say, we're going to be safe when the jihadis have jobs for jihadis. No, it's not about that, because look at the 19 hijackers. None of them were refugees from Palestinian, refugee camps. These are rich people from the Middle East. They're motivated ideologically. So number one, like Reagan said, the Soviet Empire is an evil empire. We have to say that this is evil. We are people who burn other people alive, decapitate, crucify. They are evil, and we have to understand that this is a war to the finish, a civilizational war between the jihadists and the West. And on top of that, it's not about the neocon answer. Deploy the 82nd Airborne or send all our boys back in. Ultimately, this is an ideological war that we have to help win, but the face of this war has to be a Muslim one. It has to be our allies, the Jordanians, the Egyptians, who close with this enemy and destroy them with our help, with our training, with our intelligence, but that's how we will win this war.
We were talking off camera, your family came from Hungary in the 1956, if people remember their history. But back in those days, we had Radio Free Europe. We were trying to combat ideologically what communism was telling people. Right. Should we have an equivalent approach to get what the West is out to the Arab world?
One of the biggest strategic mistakes this nation made after winning the Cold War is closing down the U.S. Information Agency. So today we have things like Voice of America, Radio Liberty, Radio Free Europe, but we're not, broadcasting pop music into Iran, which is what the American government does do, probably makes things worse. My grandparents risked imprisonment illicitly listening to things like Voice of America, Radio Free Europe. Why? Because it provided truth. It provided the analysis about what the enemy is and what you need to do if you want to help the democracies of the West. We don't do that anymore. We've whitewashed it all. It's a feel-good propaganda campaign, and that is not how you win.
We won't keep you too much longer because we know you got to do some other interviews. But going back to defeating them, should we be squeezing countries like Saudi Arabia, our alleged ally, who is on one hand working with us and on the other hand propagating the very ideology that creates ISIS?
Great question. We have to start playing hardball. Saudi Arabia, since 1979, has been part of the problem, not just part of the solution. And yes, behind closed doors, we have to say, look, guys, that has to stop. The idea that ostensibly you're on our side, but you have members, not the whole government, but members of the government and the royal family supporting the Salafists, the ideological extremists. That has to stop. Otherwise, they need to pay the consequences as well.
And as we tape this in the beginning of March, your new book, Defeating Jihad, The Winnable War, will be coming out in April, I guess. And
It will be, but it's already available, Amazon.com, so your viewers can check it out right now.
all right. Sebastian Gorka, thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Good talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sure.